Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur.
On the podcast today, we have Heather Ann Havenwood. She teaches coaches, experts, and service providers the current online marketing and sales strategies so they can close the right clients anytime they want. She's regarded as a top authority on digital marketing, sales coaching, and online publishing business strategies. So Heather, thank you very much for sitting down with us and talking with us today. We're looking forward to hearing your perspective on tough decisions.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is going to be quite fun.
Well, Heather, I want you to start us off and kind of give us a little bit about what your current focus is right now as an entrepreneur.
So as an entrepreneur right now, there's a couple of things I've focused on. I'm actually doing a new book out. I have a book out called Sexy Boss, How the Empowerment of Women is Changing the Rule Book for Money, Success, and Sex, which obviously focuses on female entrepreneurs. My big mission and why in life is to have every woman on the planet know that they can build a successful business and be independent, and they can make new choices based on that financial independence. So that is my big why in life, and I'm creating a new book and a new network to be along with that because I want to create the largest and most successful mastermind for female entrepreneurs in the world.
So tell us, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
2001 was kind of where I was thrown into entrepreneurship. It's not something that I thought.
So you started in middle school.
Yeah, basically. You're adorable, Dan. Yeah, no, I think entrepreneurship finds the entrepreneur. I know people do have this kind of like they go seek it out kind of thing, but I think honestly, a true entrepreneur, the journey finds the entrepreneur, if that makes sense. Sure. That's where everyone I know, started. We were talking about Dave Lindahl in the green room there, and he started as doing landscaping. That's an entrepreneurial thing to do. So I think that most entrepreneurs that I know, they don't all end up in the same place, but they all started somewhere along the way of doing like, oh, I want to do that, and they just kind of do it. Almost all of them start at the same kind of level.
That's interesting because, you look at that and that's so true because, a lot of people sometimes just don't do things because they don't know for sure if that's the right thing. But a lot of times just going and doing something can lead you into what your purpose is and what your next thing is going to be.
Yeah, that's the kind of the backward thinking of entrepreneurs, which is they never have that view of like the thing. And we're taught in school, like you got to, I think one of the worst things I know in my generation, when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 in college, they were like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do the rest of your life? I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to eat tomorrow. Like I'm just trying to, get some gas in the car to go like hang out with my friends. So I think that that's one of the worst things we ask ourselves and ask as our kids as well, like having to make some weird decision when you're like 20 or, 19, 20 years old to like the rest of your life. Because true entrepreneurs kind of know, I'm doing this now, I'll make some money, we'll see what happens next, So I think that's what they call that ADD. I call that, smart. So I'm one of those people. What I'm doing now may shift. And if I had known what I know now back in 2001 when I first got started, I probably would have been a lot more able to be fluid. But our society kind of makes us do this like you got to put yourself in a box, Mm-hmm. And I think that's not the best thing, because the days of working for a company for 25 years and being there, like that's over, right? So I think people are allowed to evolve.
So I want you to walk us through a tough decision that I like to call first what's called the sore thumb tough decision. It's a decision that you had to make and you're not necessarily proud of that decision. It kind of sticks out whenever you start to talk about business and decisions and things like that, but you learned a lot of lessons through it. So I'm not saying that you wouldn't want to go through it again or that was completely bad because a lot of times these tough decisions are what shape us as entrepreneurs. But I want you to kind of talk us through a tough decision that you had and some of the lessons that you learned through that tough decision that didn't have that good of an outcome.
Well, yeah, that was easy. Yeah. So I was in real estate investing in Florida in 2001 through hitting the 2008 recession. So I built a business with another real estate investor. He was a speaker and whatnot. And I built his brand. He was a flipper. And my job was to create the seminar and the construct and the events and the courses. And so we partnered up. And I built that business from $0 to $1 million in 12 months. So we were doing well. And then I went to an event, came home one day, and everything was gone. Bank accounts were emptied. All the sites were turned off. Merchant accounts were flipped over. My mortgage was due and couldn't make it. And so my house went to foreclosure within 2 months, and I had to file personal and business bankruptcy within 6 months. So, and that was, December 5th, 2005 at 8:01 a.m., right? Remember those moments. So I think that, and that person still has that business today, and he's still very prosperous. So some of the decisions, there were a lot of decisions there. I had to leave my home. I had to sell everything I had. I had to live out of a car. It's a lot of tough decisions. And so I think one of the big tough decisions in that process was, not stopping, keep living, keep dreaming, keep being an entrepreneur. I think that's one of the tough decisions. The other tough decision was probably not driving to his home and killing him on some level. But I didn't. It's not like me, right? But definitely crossed my mind in a moment. But I never do that. The next big tough decision I had to make, there's tons of them, but when I finally kind of began to come out of it, it took me about 3 years to even recover to a point where I could kind of start breathing again.
What did you do right after that happened, though? So you filed for bankruptcy. Did you go work for somebody else for a couple of years first? Or what did you do to kind of make ends meet before you kind of got to the next thing?
Oh, you're so cute, Dan. Just to remind you of what 2007 and 8 looked like in Florida, sweetheart, there were no jobs. I couldn't get a job at Starbucks, just to give you an idea. Okay, so I know I feel like I'm old, but there were no jobs, and everyone around me was going through financial catastrophe and couldn't get a job at waiting tables, couldn't get a job anywhere. So I lived on people's couches. I tried to start doing some online stuff. I tried all kinds of things, trying to get ends meet. Luckily, I had some good friends and some great couches for a while. And yeah, that's kind of what happened for at least 2 or 3 years.
Did you ever figure out why he decided to do that or what had happened that caused him to do this?
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
He did what he chose to do. I think everyone has their own choices. It had nothing to do with me. It was not personal.
Sure.
It was just his business decision.
Sure. Some sort of, a lot of times when I see that kind of stuff happen, and, it's, obviously we're never going to really know for sure, but, a lot of times they see the money and they don't want to split it or don't want to share it or, whatever.
Sure,
and they had to move it.
Yeah, I'm sure that had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But it's not really my place to get into his head anymore.
Sure. Moved on. Well, let's move on a little bit here because I don't want to rely too much or stay too much on that one.
No worries.
So let's talk
bringing me down. Well, you asked, right? We didn't mean like that tough.
We like not so good, but that was just awful.
Right. Like we're thinking like a little thumbnail, like you like hit your toe.
You got out the sledgehammer.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think of other ones. Like, what else can I tell them that's like a small one? I'm like, screw it. Here it is. But I wrote my book out. So my book, Sexy Boss, came out of that. So, and this is good, something positive. So within like the first couple months that I was going down, a friend of mine who's in this business reached out to me and being supportive. And he's like, one day, Heather, you're going to share your story. And my response was him like, F you, drop the bomb, hell no, like a lot of F's going on. And I, pretty much was like, I'm not going to ever share this because I was extremely embarrassed. Because in my view, and this is really important, in my view, I'm really damn smart. And just because you're smart and intelligent and you know all the information, and I've been to over 450 events in real estate and success seminars and personal development and thousands of hours of coaching, doesn't mean that can't happen to you. You can have all the money in the world and all the real estate in the world. And, when something happens like that, it's bigger than you. And when you start to actually go, oh my God, there's something bigger than me sometimes at play, you feel you feel worthless and you feel like, oh my God, I thought I was way bigger than this, and so I think that's a big lesson for all of us is that we are here on this planet. We're going what we're going. We have some success strategies and success things, and we go to events and seminars and follow amazing mentor people. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's like there's also a journey that we don't always see, and I think that's really important. So for me, I shared the story of Sexy Boss. It's my personal story. It's actually how I overcame everything. It's the mindset shift I had to shift into. And I shared it really only for me. My intention of that book was if one person buys it and likes it, it's a success. Because it really was nothing more than just me getting out of my head and sharing one of the most painful times of my life.
Well, one of the things I was going to mention is I think that the more and more we can start to tell our stories, the more we can connect with other people. And that's one of the things that I think is very important. That what you've just done is you've started to tell your story. You're telling people that story, and that we can learn things from the story, but it also allows us to understand who that person is. And I actually read a book recently called The Storyteller's Secret. And it is a very good book that talks about why we should tell stories, but also how to tell stories to allow other people to, really build rapport with us, because a lot of times we're all about business, but until somebody actually understands who you are and your background, it's hard to connect with you. And same thing, not just for your customers, your clients, your donors, your investors, or whatever, but also for the people that are working for you and working with you and alongside you and your team. They need to know who you are and what your background is, because then they'll start to follow you more and be able to jump on board with your vision.
I agree.
When Dan was talking there about the storytelling, I was thinking back to, just the days when I was teaching students, and there was no faster or more effective way to engage them and get them to really understand what you wanted them to by telling them a story, because they wanted, and, I taught junior high and middle school students, so they wanted to know all about you. And if you could tell them a story to relate to them, they would listen and they would perk up, and it would help them, engage. And I think the same thing is true. Like if we're looking to influence people or to help others, then those stories go a long way in getting that done.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that one of the most challenging things I share, is that you learn from failure, as as a teacher. You learn from failure. If you have kids, or if you've ever been a kid in your life, that you've ever played sports. I mean, sports is the ultimate playground, right? Because you learn from failure and you hit and hit and hit. And I always go back to football because it's fun. And I like football, and Dallas Cowboys are amazing. Is that, how many times, I'm sure there's a stat somewhere, but, the question is, how many times does a team or football teammates get hit in a season before they get the Super Bowl? I mean, who knows, right? Thousands, I guess. Like, how many times do they get hit and fumble and miss the ball and, interception? I mean, how many of those does that happen to? And they're the ones who won, maybe the Super Bowl, right? So, but all that combined, all those fumbles and interceptions and hits and bruises and pains create Super Bowl, It's the same thing with entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Something you asked me, Dan, I was going to tap into, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You asked me, what did you do? And I'm like looking at some of your notes here about tough decisions and about the real entrepreneur and you kind of thing. And because this is about entrepreneurship, I'll speak something I don't really, usually share. But so there had to be a turning point, right, for me. And here's kind of where the turning point was. So I ended up living in Marco Island, which is the end of the road in I-75. It's literally, it says, end of the road, turn left, and you will hit this, it will hit the sewer. So it's the end of the road before you go into the Everglades. Like, you will turn left into the Everglades, and now you're in Alligator Alley. But I lived there, and it was gorgeous. Actually, it was on the water, and, my friend had a great couch on the water, so that's cool. But the average age was 80. Okay. So when you're 33 years old, and you're broken around a bunch of 80-year-olds with Bentleys, it was a weird thing. So, you learned a lot, right? The only thing that was open during the day, and 8:00 was Marco midnight, everything closed at midnight, so you went to eat, was Starbucks. And people didn't do what they do, like where I live in Austin, where you go and you're working and you got your headphones on, you're in your computer. No, in Starbucks there, everyone's like, you walk in, it's kind of like Cheers.
Norm.
Like, hey, what's your name? You want to come hang out with us and sit and talk for 5 hours because we got nothing to do. We're bored and retired. So I met all these crazy people just by walking to Starbucks and sitting there for hours. And I met some amazing people, and I call it two kinds of people, right? This is very turning point. I met two kinds of people. One, it was the grouchy guy. That guy? He's like, rah, rah, rah. Everything's just, get off my lawn or whatever, right? He was the guy who came from probably New York and was in government for 30 years, and he's just pissed off at the world in his retirement. And then you had the guy who's jovial, everything's great. And you always talk to him, and he was some level an entrepreneur at some level, like owned a business or something, right? And he's out there with, I said this image, he's out there with the golf course, with his oxygen tank. Let's do it, I can barely move, but let's keep going. Like that's just like who he was. And I saw those people, and they were at the end of the road, but they're still like kicking it, and happy. And I really looked at that. I'm like, why is that? Why is that guy happy and that one's not, or vice versa? And I realized that there's a mindset as an entrepreneur. That person might not have his company anymore. He might have sold it or whatever. But in his world, entrepreneurship never ends. It's just a way of life. There is no retirement. It's just like, oh, I'm not dealing with that business anymore. I'm dealing with this. It's a very different mindset versus like an employee for 20 years, where it's like, ta-da, you get your red stapler and you're gone. And now it's there's this weird kind of dream. And so I was sitting there on the beach one day, and I just got something really clear. And this was kind of the turning point. I got that even though I'm sitting on the beach and I have no bank account, I got nothing. I mean, I have barely $10 in my pocket, and I got who I was. I got that who I am is an entrepreneur. I don't have to have a business to be that. I don't have to have a team to be that. It's like who I am. And if that's who I am, what would an entrepreneur do? Well, the first thing is, as one of my real estate investor mentors said, you're not a tree, you can move. It's called U-Haul. So I moved from Marco Island, where there was nothing going on, to Austin, Texas. That was my first thing, because I said, okay, well, if I was an entrepreneur, what would I do? I would surround myself with other entrepreneurs. So just to give you an analogy again, if I wanted to be an actress on Broadway, okay, or a Wall Street guy, I wouldn't try to do that from Minnesota, right? I would move to New York, because that's where Wall Street is and that's where Broadway is. I would go surround myself with other people that are doing what I want. Even if I'm just working at the Starbucks next to Wall Street, I'm still there, So that's what I did. And that's when everything shifted, when things started to happen for me, is when I moved and just started to be in conversation with other entrepreneurs and get back into community and start saying, well, what can I create? What can I do? What can I create?
So here's a question for you, kind of following up on this.
Sure.
Do you feel like people can learn to be an entrepreneur?
No.
Or are most people born entrepreneurs?
No, I'm a big no. And I mean that in the most loving way, because I'm pretty clear that's against like most people out there. I don't think you can learn it.
It has to be kind of born with it.
It's not born. It's not like I didn't come out of my womb, you know what I mean? But I feel like it's like an athlete.
It's like part of you.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's some people that come out very strong they're athletic. They're naturally athletic, right? And there's some people that aren't naturally athletic, but there's some people that are naturally athletic, but they never really got nurtured. So like they didn't go Pro Bowl or whatever. Some people that are natural dancers, but they didn't go Broadway, but they're just kind of natural. I think there's people that naturally see things, because part of being an entrepreneur is you see things and you connect things where other people don't see. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, right? They see pieces that other people didn't see. That's the element of an entrepreneur, and they're resourceful and they're connective. And those are the things that entrepreneurs normally do and are nurturing in them that are not taught in school. They're not taught. It's not taught to go out of the lines. It's not taught to be resourceful. It's not taught to say, I know that that's what you say, teacher, but I'm going to completely go against you and go on the other side.
Not only is it not taught, but it's actually
condemned.
Exactly. Our culture and the way that we set things up actually looks down on that.
Correct.
So to go against that and be successful, I definitely agree with you. It takes a certain type of person. And I probably didn't understand that. I know I didn't understand that until I started being around Dan from day in and day out. And it was like, he just thinks differently than I do.
Yeah. It's not a better or wrong, because sometimes entrepreneurs are like messed up in their thinking, but I mean, it just sees things differently.
Right. They still make mistakes, lots of mistakes, but it's a different type of mistake.
It's a different, they see things that other people don't see. And I think that for myself, then you add the element of a gender conversation. I was always kind of different, on some level. And it wasn't till that moment on the beach that I sat there and really got, like this is who I am. It's just who I am. So go be it.
All right. We're talking to Heather Havenwood, and we've been talking about some difficult decisions and specifically as, how entrepreneurs we can get through those. And so we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we come back, we'll talk to her about some of her favorites as it relates to her life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. All right, we are back with Heather Havenwood. And Heather, I want you to start us off during the trifecta and talk to us about a particular technology that you use in business day in and day out that helps make your life easier as an entrepreneur.
Thanks for that. Honestly, simple stuff. Slack. I use a lot of Slack. That's with my team. So Slack, I do a ton of different tech stuff, but honestly, I try to keep it pretty dang simple.
What is a favorite quote that you've heard that's helped you as an entrepreneur?
Does this feed my confusion or strengthen my clarity?
And what about a favorite book that you've read?
Of course, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, of course. The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. But The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn is my favorite.
So before we move on to this next piece that I was getting ready to ask you, I sent you an email, and when I sent you that email, I got an immediate reply back saying that you were part of a group of entrepreneurs that's trying to schedule your time a little bit better and not check your email once a day. How have you been doing with that?
I do that.
Has that really helped you? Because I'm very similar in that I check my email all the time. I feel like sometimes I need to just do that same thing, just once a day, twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, something like that.
Well, I would encourage you to do that if it works for you. But for me, I started doing that. It's been a couple months. What it did for me is set expectations for people, right? Because sure. I think we have an unmet expectation that if someone sends, because the email that you sent to me is my private. Like we all have our newsletter ones, Sure. Like this is my private, right? Because I look at, and if you have that, then you're in, right? If you're a VIP client, stuff like that. So, but I set that up as expectations. It's helped me with my clients as well. They don't feel like, she doesn't get back to me in a day or two. It's not personal. She's got it. She just is trying to set her time schedule. I highly suggest it.
So Heather's email is, no, I'm just kidding.
You're welcome. Oh yeah. That was funny.
So I want you to tell the listeners how they can reach out to you and get more information from you and start to follow you more after they listen to this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Super fun. So yeah, they're welcome to get a hold of me at heatherhavenwood.com. If they're interested in having a conversation with me, I actually suggest they go to my chat bot at askheatherann.com. It's actually me. It's my little bot. I kind of talk to you and give you a free chapter of my audiobook. But honestly, it's where I actually go and interact with a lot of people on my chat bot. So go to askheatherann.com.
Well, Heather, thank you so much. This has been a great interview, and look forward to having you on a future episode as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.